taken. Also, 2 more American planes are missing in Iraq, over Iraq. Some sad news. That's our report on NBC News at sunrise. NBC's continuing coverage of the crisis, the war in the Gulf, will continue in just a moment with the Today program. I'm Garrett Utley. For Mary Alice Williams, goodbye.
No. Good morning. After being outgunned and humiliated in the opening phase of the war in the Gulf, Saddam Hussein has struck back at the United States and its allies. Iraq fired over a half-dozen missiles at Israel last night, striking into the heart of Tel Aviv. Some damage, 52 injuries the result. Another Iraqi missile was launched towards Saudi Arabia, but intercepted by American forces before it could reach its destination. Though Iraq's attacks have proved disruptive and disturbing, their net effect pales in comparison to the pounding being delivered by a steady stream of Allied missiles and bombers. As part of Operation Desert Storm, round-the-clock attacks on Iraq and occupied Kuwait are continuing today, Friday, January the 18th, 1991.
From NBC News, this is a special edition of Today, America at War. Now, here are Bryant Gumbel and Deborah Norville.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Friday morning, heading towards a weekend. You ready for another marathon?
Ready for another marathon. And you know, when you've got something like this going on, you try to find the good in it. And I think the good is last night when the bombs did hit Tel Aviv, everyone was very much afraid it was going to escalate and Iraq was going to put a lot more firepower forward. The good news is they haven't done it so far.
Well, we're going to be talking about that this morning. It's now 6 a.m. here in the east, 2 in the afternoon in Iraq. There, the air attacks that comprise the opening phase of Operation Desert Storm are continuing almost uninterrupted since the operation began, now 35 hours ago. Over the next 6 hours, our job is to bring you up to date on the operation and explore some of the questions surrounding it, and there are plenty of those this morning. The operation's early news have been headlined by U.S. dominance and the lack of strong Iraqi response. But this morning's top story centers on the Iraqi strike against Israel and what the Israeli response may yet be. As we've noted, making good on his threat to attack Israel if and when a war began, Saddam Hussein fired as many as 10 missiles on the Tel Aviv and Haifa regions of Israel about 7 hours ago, sending people to shelters with their gas masks on. The rockets, it turned out, had conventional warheads. They wound up killing none, but hospitalizing 52. Though Israel had said before that it would retaliate if attacked, the response has so far been restrained. Bush administration officials, fearful that such a response from Israel might shatter the Gulf coalition, are pressuring Tel Aviv to hold fire and let the U.S. forces retaliate. And at this hour, they are still doing that, flying a continuing series of sorties targeting Iraqi installations in both Iraq and occupied Kuwait. Now, as was the case yesterday, it's difficult to get a handle on what kind of casualties those forces are incurring. Iraq is claiming to have downed 65 aircraft so far, but that seems terribly exaggerated. There's an unconfirmed report of the loss of 1 more U.S. fighter, in addition to the 3 U.S. aircraft and 5 airmen that officials now are saying went down yesterday. Furthermore, Italian officials are reporting the loss of 1 of their jets involved in the attack. Great Britain is reporting 1 lost. Kuwait says it lost 1 as well. U.S. officials in eastern Saudi Arabia also are reporting slight injuries to 3 servicemen stemming from a battle inside Kuwait between U.S. Marine Corps helicopters and jets and Iraqi forces manning a command post about 6 miles inside the Kuwaiti border. Saudi Arabian sirens in Dhahran, too, were set off by warnings of an incoming Iraqi missile, but that missile was intercepted by an American Patriot missile before it could do any damage. Now, with all that as a background, let's bring you further up to date by checking in with our correspondents around the world, starting with Martin Fletcher, who is on the phone from Tel Aviv. Martin, good morning. Martin Fletcher in Tel Aviv. Can you hear me? All right, we'll try to get back to Tel Aviv in just a moment. But right now, let's move on to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, where Mike Betcher is standing by. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Bryant. I believe the leaders here are hoping that the Israelis do not retaliate. It would create terrible problems with the coalition. The Egyptians are saying today that they are moving 35,000 troops up to a position to get ready to launch a ground attack. It appears throughout the front lines, troops are moving forward from the coalition in preparation for a ground attack. We don't know when that would occur. But a lot of the bombing that has occurred in the past 24 hours has been in Kuwait. Close quarter bombing, attacks by Apache helicopters, bombing that would knock out enemy tanks and also try to root out Iraqi soldiers who are dug in the Kuwait area on the front. Brian?
Mike, anything to add to that incoming missile last night where you are?
Well, I was standing here and a bit of confusion. I heard a pop and a few seconds later saw an F-15 take off with its afterburners on, and we thought that perhaps it was a misfire on the afterburner or something else. We were certainly wrong. And in reviewing the tape, you can see the missile streak forward and then explode. It's a little scary knowing that we were here and it got this far, frankly, Brian.
All right, Mike, thanks very much. We'll check in further with you in just a little bit. But right now, let's go to the Pentagon, where our national correspondent, Catherine Kirk, is standing by. Katie, good morning.
Wait.
Katie, good morning.
Good morning, Bryant. We have some unconfirmed reports that I will try to confirm as soon as I'm done with you here, that 8 Israeli warplanes were seen headed towards Iraq, flying over Lebanon east towards Iraq. You know, they have F-15s, F-16s, and F-4Es in their arsenal. Again, I must emphasize these are unconfirmed wire reports that are just coming in right now. And of course, this is something that greatly concerns the U.S. military in Saudi Arabia and in the Pentagon as well.
Katie, let me come back. I'll go to that point in just a moment with Jim Miklashevsky at the White House. But on your end, what are you hearing about U.S. casualties as a result of the action since last we spoke?
Earlier, Bryant, 2 more U.S. warplanes are missing, an A-6 Intruder, which is a carrier-based bomber, and an F-15E, that's an Air Force jet that has both air-to-air and air-to-ground capabilities. Both of those planes are reported missing this morning by Pentagon officials. Both are 2-seaters. That's a total of 4 pilots. In addition to that, an Italian Tornado jet is also missing. Another British Tornado, that means a total of 2 British Tornado jets, as well as a Kuwaiti jet that was announced lost last night. The Pentagon has also announced the name of the pilot of the FA-18 from the USS Saratoga, who was downed over Iraq yesterday. He's Lieutenant Commander Michael Spiker from Jacksonville, Florida. He leaves behind a wife and 2 small children.
All right, Katie, thanks very much. Your report was unconfirmed of 8 Israeli jets heading towards Iraq. Let's go to Tel Aviv right now. Martin Fletcher on the line. Maybe you can tell us more about that. Martin, good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Well, I haven't heard that report, although as Katie was telling you that, I did see that AFP, the French agency, are reporting that information about the 8 planes. It's the French news agency reporting it from southern Lebanon. In my experience, pretty unreliable. I wouldn't like to say it's not true, but it's not the most reliable source. It's worth mentioning, of course. It's certainly what we're waiting to see. Will Israel retaliate or not for the attack last night? The Israeli cabinet finished its meeting this morning, and a source close to one of the ministers told me that what will happen is that Israel will give the rest of the day to the United States to finish off those batteries. Israel, he said, is waiting patiently. But if one more missile lands, Israel will retaliate immediately, he told me.
Martin, considering the missiles that came in last night, has the mood changed considerably since yesterday morning when you and I talked?
I think it has changed considerably, Brian, because yesterday there was a feeling of let's not get carried away with our euphoria. There was wonderful appreciation of what the United States had done. There was some skepticism about among military sources whether or not America really was able to do as much as the first plane suggested. If you remember, CNN, for instance, was saying, quoting the Pentagon, saying the Iraqi Air Force had been decimated, I don't want to put down CNN's report, of course, but there was so much confusion. The fog of confusion is tremendous during the war, but those early reports turned out not to be quite so accurate. So that euphoria here also turned out to be misplaced, and this morning Israelis are staying very close to their homes, very close to their gas masks, waiting to see whether Saddam Hussein indeed will launch another attack. They certainly say, that the Israeli sources, the Israeli military say, they believe Saddam Hussein is quite capable of attacking again.
Okay, Martin Fletcher, thanks very much. If it does turn out to be true, those 8 Israeli jets are heading towards Iraq, it would represent a failure of the pressure being exerted by the Bush administration on Israeli officials. Let's go to White House correspondent Jim Miklashevsky, who's outside the White House this morning. Mick, they've been strong-arming them pretty heavy, haven't they? Good morning.
Good morning, Bryant. There was an incredible scene here late last night, shortly after the Iraqi missiles landed in Israel. We could see through the White House windows Deputy Secretary of State Lawrence Eagleburger and Brent Scowcroft, the National Security Advisor, furiously working the telephones. We also know that Secretary of State Baker was here working the telephones, talking to the Israelis, assuring them that the U.S. would try to take out those missile batteries, live up to its pledge to do what it could to keep Israel out of the fray, and seeking reassurances from Israel that it would not enter into the fight. We don't know about these reports this morning. They're just too, it's just too sketchy at this point. Nobody here knows at this point, but they will be keeping a close eye on it. The fear, of course, Bryant, is that if Israel were drawn into the fight, that the coalition, this international coalition that has been, excuse me, mounted against Iraq would be split apart. But as early as a month ago, President Bush seemed pretty confident that he could keep that coalition together.
Jim, we spent an awful lot of
Israel, I'm convinced the coalition would not fall apart. I can't give you the specifics on it, but I'm absolutely convinced of it, and you can assume the way I've answered the question that we've inquired about that. Secondly, Israel has had what I would call a low-profile position on all of this, for which I salute them. It is not easy. They have their security, they feel, could well be at stake from some radical act by Saddam Hussein. But I have no argument with Mr. Shamir over the way the Israelis have conducted themselves, nor do I think do the coalition partners on that particular point, regardless of what their historic relationship with Israel may have been.
Perhaps that was too optimistic. We'll have to wait and see. Bryant, you were going to ask?
Sorry. Jim, I'm sorry. We spent a great deal of yesterday asking how Saddam Hussein could have been surprised by the original U.S. assault. By the same token, the administration really can't be surprised that Saddam Hussein made good on his threat, can they?
No, I don't. I think what surprised them is when those jets originally went in there, one of their primary targets were those missile batteries that were aimed directly at Israel. And the initial reports are that those batteries were taken out. There's some suspicion now that what Saddam Hussein did was bring in perhaps some mobile missile batteries that then launched that attack. What was surprising to me was all military intelligence officials were telling us in Israel and here that the Scuds, that they would be able to tell when the Scuds were on the way, but it appears that Israel was surprised. I want to make one more point this morning. If there's any question at all that this was a political as well as military attack, you have to take note of a story out of Tunis this morning. The Palestine Liberation Organization condemned, quote, the effective participation of Israel, unquote, in the war against Iraq, as if Israel were the one who had launched the attack. And I must tell you this morning, I talked to one U.S. official, asked about this Iraqi attack on Israel, and the only response was that Iraq must have a death wish.
All right, Jim Miklaszewski, okay, that's going to be our big story throughout the day, obviously. Thanks very much. We'll be talking just a little bit. We're going to be getting the Israeli point of view in just a moment. We come back right after a commercial break.
To be a teacher, you have to wear a lot of different hats. You're an educator first, but also a disciplinarian and a humanitarian. You need the energy of youth and the wisdom of age. You have to be a mediator, and above all, a friend. The more you think about the roles our teachers must play, the more you know they deserve our applause.
Smoking crack is in, then you're in for some news. Crack is so addictive, people will do anything for another hit. Robbery, assault, murder. And once you're into stuff like that, you might be getting in for good. Before you try crack, think what you're getting yourself into.
Where I grew up, there was no Boys and Girls Club. And since Mom was working, we had a lot of time to ourselves, my boyfriend and me. I'm not sure who got into the club anyway. All that kid stuff must be boring. After school, we would just hang out. Or sometimes we would go down to the river. I remember this one time, he got his hands on a car. And well, I don't know. Maybe if there was a club in the neighborhood, things might have been different.
Fact. This year, over 19 billion tax dollars went to families begun by a teenage birth. Support the Boys and Girls Club, the club that beats the streets.
There are many question marks this morning about the Gulf War, but one of the largest hovers over the Israeli response. Though it has taken no action as of yet, Israel has vowed it will retaliate for any attack against it, something the United States believes will greatly complicate the current situation. The Israeli cabinet has been meeting in special session this morning to discuss last night's missile attack. Israeli health minister and cabinet member Ehud Olmert has just come from that meeting, and he's with us this morning from Jerusalem. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
You've just come from the cabinet meeting. Can you tell us what decision your government has decided to take?
I absolutely understand your curiosity, Deborah, but I don't think that I can satisfy your desire. Unfortunately, this is something that, for obvious reasons, can't be discussed. Certainly, no details can be disclosed. I can only tell you that this is a serious matter and that the basic Israeli attitude is well known. We admire very much, in fact, the American operation. It's a great military operation, and we know that America did everything possible in order to destroy the launchers that were targeted against Israel. But unfortunately, not all of them apparently were destroyed, and in fact, we were shot at yesterday night.
Indeed.
And something has to be done.
Can I assume that your reluctance to share with me and the rest of the world your government's decision is in part because the longer the question mark over whether Israel will or will not respond, in essence, helps defend your country from further attack?
No, I don't know. I don't trust that any such considerations are of any importance to Saddam Hussein. I think that he's certainly set out to include Israel into this war, and he will continue his attempts regardless of whether Israel will react or not. The question of our reaction is just a basic matter of who is responsible for the security and protection of the State of Israel. And our traditional position was that we do not want America and Americans to fight and die for us. We are capable of fighting for ourselves, perhaps unlike some of your other allies.
You use the past tense and say that was your position. I won't pursue that any further. I'll leave that as an open question, but I will ask you, what would your government deem is an appropriate response to the attack last night on Tel Aviv and the areas north of there?
That is something that the government will have to manifest at a proper time.
The United States, has it specifically asked your government not to act in retaliation?
I don't know that there was any specific request by the United States government. I think this is something that the United States government has to say. I can only say that there is a certain degree of cooperation and contact between the two governments, and I think that the relations are, as everyone knows, very, very close.
Obviously, putting your pilots in the air to retaliate and avenge this attack puts their lives at risk, and presumably other Israeli lives as well. What would Israel have to gain from retaliating itself when there is an American offer to do the job for you?
First, I'm not now arguing the question of retaliation, sure. Deborah. However, last night, the lives of many hundreds of Israelis, perhaps thousands, were risked because the missiles were shot at civilian population. And presently, 52 people are hospitalized as a result of it.
And what about the rest of the damage? Houses, buildings, that sort of thing?
It's damage. It could be worse, but it's bad enough. And the problem is this, not of retaliation, but the best possible way to make sure that he will not continue.
It's been, I guess, about 8 or 9 hours since the attack. Do you think it is the worst is over, or more is yet to come?
No, I don't think so. My personal assumption is that he may continue. He probably still has the capability of shooting missiles. Had they not been destroyed since then by the American attacks, then probably, I believe, he will try again. In any event, we advise the Israeli citizens to behave as if there can be another wave of attack.
Remain on alert. There have been some who've suggested if Israel were to get actively involved in this conflict, it would jeopardize the coalition. Do you see it that way?
No, not at all. In fact, if you would recall, President Mubarak just said a few days ago that if attacked, Israel will certainly have a right to exercise self-defense and retaliate. So it came from Mubarak's mouth just a few days ago, and I think it reflects the basic fundamental right of every society and every people to defend themselves. And as I've said, don't forget that for the time being, the only society in the world, the only people in the world which are directly exposed and threatened are the Israelis. And this is something that I don't think we have to bear.
Minister O'Hort, you have been with us several times during this conflict. I suspect we'll be talking again. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be back after these messages.
Crack is maybe the most dangerous thing you can do to your heart. When you do crack, what happens is these toxic chemicals rush through your lungs and then right into your bloodstream. The reaction is like so violent. Your heart just might not be able to take it.
The attack on Israel last night came as little surprise to most observers. Saddam Hussein had warned that he would retaliate against Israel if U.S.-backed forces attacked him. And so we welcome Mideast expert Robin Wright, who is with us again from our Washington newsroom. Robin, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
What do you see as the net effect of this? This certainly changes the dynamics of it all, doesn't it?
It changes us a great deal. The one hope we can hold out is that this is a one-time incident. Even if Israel responds, and that the coalition recognizes that, and that the three key Arab partners outside the Gulf, Syria, Morocco, and Egypt, do not break away.
Well, let's talk about that. What if they do respond? Talk to me about some of the responses that are part of the coalition. I mean, the Syrians aren't going to really stand for that, are they?
Well, I suspect that just as there are U.S. officials talking to the Israelis, that there are also U.S. officials talking to the three key Arab states, and they're trying to convince them, look, if Israel does respond, and this is a one-time thing, please have tolerance and patience. We'll try to take out the mobile launchers in Iraq and prevent this from happening again. This may be a one-time thing. Of course, the greatest danger is Egypt, which constitutes not only the majority of the Arab world in terms of its own population, but has the largest contingent in the Persian Gulf. And, of course, it has relations with Israel. If it felt under pressure and withdrew, then those three countries would probably all withdraw. Syria, of course, is the most radical state, and Hafez al-Assad, the president, has indicated in the past that he might reconsider if Israel became involved, if this became an Arab-Israeli dispute. We're not at that point yet. This, hopefully, is just a one-time incident.
Robin, does it also matter, I mean, assuming that the Israelis do carry out some kind of a strike, does it also matter what kind of a strike? I mean, it's one thing if they hit at a strategic installation on the western edge of Iraq, and quite another if they go after what we might call a residential target, a collateral target.
That's a good point, Bryant. If Israel's strike is surgical, limited, and goes after a strategic facility, something military, then it's possible, again, that the coalition could short-term hold together. If, however, lots of civilians are killed, then, of course, I think particularly Syria would be tested and might break away.
We hear Israelis talking about the necessity to strike back because there is a need to remain psychologically a regional power. Would Israel suffer a great deal if it restrained itself in this case?
No, in fact, I think that probably long-term it would actually gain. It would have a bargaining chip when it goes to the peace table on the broader Arab-Israeli dispute in the aftermath of the Persian Gulf crisis. It would have a very big IOU.
But you would allow that would be, I'd say, quite unusual restraint for any nation once attacked to not respond.
Particularly Israel, yes.
Let's take a look real quickly, Rob. We've only got about 40 seconds left. I mean, is there any reason to believe that what we saw last night was the only rocket attack we're going to see from Iraq to Israel?
Well, Iraq has limited mobile launchers. Most of its fixed launchers were taken out by the initial U.S. strike. There's the hope that the U.S. managed to get most of them. They can be moved very quickly, and the U.S. may have missed them. If the U.S. got them, then this may, as I said, be a one-time thing.
All right. Robin Wright, thanks very much. We'll be talking throughout the morning. Still ahead in our next half hour, we're going to get the PLO perspective on what's happening in the Gulf, and we'll also get an assessment of Iraq's military hardware. We've got a lot more to come. Stay with us. More ahead after this. Back now, 6:25 on a Friday morning.
I was just checking the wires to see what was going on. The Pentagon is now confirming what Katie had said a minute ago, that two planes, two American F-16, two American jets are missing, 4 crew members. In addition, 2 squadrons of F-16s had to come back to the base in Saudi with their payloads intact. They weren't able to deliver the missiles because of bad weather. There's a heavy cloud cover over the area, and that's causing all kinds of problems.
I'm going to put on my peepers to give you another one like that, because we had seen this earlier, that the Italian ministry had confirmed the following about 8 tornadoes that took off last night. Of the 8, 1 did not return at all. That was the one we reported
a moment ago,
that was shot down. 1 of the 8, that makes 2, returned to base shortly after takeoff, and the remaining 6 returned without completing their mission, just like you had said, after failing to carry out in-flight refueling procedures. So evidently the weather is playing havoc with what's going on.
That sounds like more of a training problem, though, the refueling.
I don't know. I mean, I thought so originally, until you tell me that both squadrons of American fighters also returned with their payloads intact, unable to complete their mission. So if you were doing in-flight refueling,
and you can't see the jet that's got the gas tanks,
then that would be the reason for the turnaround here. We talked yesterday at this time about watching when the whole thing came down. Were you watching last night when the first word came?
I was indeed, and you know, I was interested by what Katie had reported, and Martin Fletcher in Tel Aviv sort of put a bit of a damper on it, saying Agence France Presse has not been entirely reliable all of the time. But one thing that was interesting about this possibility that Israel has launched 8 jets in retaliation is that they report that their path is over Lebanon, not over Jordan. The easiest way to get to Iraq would be over Jordan. But Jordan, you know, has vowed to
anybody who invades
protect
their
its
airspace.
airspace.
That's correct.
Of course, the missiles had to fly over Jordan to get there, so you wonder if there's not a bit of an inconsistency in the policy.
One of the things we want to try to talk to Colonel Harry Summers about, our military analyst, as the morning goes along, is why we weren't able to tell when those missiles were armed.
Absolutely.
Supposedly, we are set up to be able to tell the minute they start the arming procedure. You recall that about a month ago, the Israelis expressed some concern because we did not detect a couple of firings that the Iraqis were test firing. Evidently, the bad news is that we still have some flaws in that program.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We had Ray Klein on, who was a former director of the CIA during the Cuban Missile Crisis, among other things, and I asked him about that, and he sort of poo-pooed the idea that there were any problems, any gaps in our intelligence net, if you will, our ability to see what the enemy or the opposition is doing. I think this is, when these things start happening, it's the point in the conflict when you realize that you may not always be getting a completely candid assessment, for obvious reasons, from the folks at DOD.
When you think about it, it requires an enormous act of faith. If you can imagine yourself in your home, your city's only miles away from a hostile front, and the act of faith that's required of you is that you place the trust of your defense in another nation's ability to either restrain that hostile nation or take them out before they get you. It makes it an enormous leap of faith.
Which is why I think what Mr. Olmert said just a few minutes ago was rather interesting. He doesn't say that they're not going to retaliate. He doesn't say that they are. Leaving it an open question continues to make the possibility of an Israeli response, which which would be massive if they wanted to go all out. They're the most powerful military force in that area, except for the Allied coalition.
It's a story we're going to keep watching as the day moves along. We've got a lot more to come. 29 past. Let's take a station break.
WSMV, Nashville. From Channel 4 News, this is The Scene at 5:30 with Jim Travis.
Good morning and welcome to our Desert Storm update. I'm Jim Travis. News of more U.S. losses tops our newscast. The Pentagon says 2 American planes and their crews are missing this morning, a Navy A-6 and an Air Force F-15. The Navy plane carries a crew of 2. The Air Force plane also carries a crew of 2. Recapping other events, Saddam Hussein fired more than a half-dozen missiles at Israel overnight. But so far, there has been no retaliation from Israel, to the relief of those who fear Israeli retaliation would split the alliance against Iraq. Official word on the 101st Airborne is hard to come by, but most observers believe the ground assault on Iraqi forces is at least several days away. The Israeli army says there were some minor injuries and property damage resulting from an Iraqi missile attack early this morning. Israelis were ordered into shelters and told to wear gas masks for protection against Iraqi chemical weapons. But none of the Scuds that landed overnight had a chemical warhead. Police reports say 30 people were taken to hospitals, but their conditions are not known. Israeli radio says all the injured suffered from shock. The question on the world's mind right now is how will Israel respond to the missile attack? Israel radio says Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir has been meeting with cabinet ministers and defense officials to decide how to respond to the attack. But the U.S. has been urging Israel to stay out of the war, fearing Israeli involvement could drive some Arab states out of the alliance against Iraq.
That the government of Israel, and let me add, fully supported by the opposition in Israel, has declared that, of course, Israel reserves the right to respond in any way it would deem fit, without going at the present time into particulars what the decision of the Israeli government in that respect will be.
Israel's Army Chief of Staff says the Iraqi action obliges a response, although some observers believe Israel may wait for a period of time to see how the Allied attack against Iraq progresses. The Pentagon says the Iraqi counterattack also involved a missile salvo at Saudi Arabia, but officials say the Iraqi Scud was shot down by a U.S. Patriot interceptor missile. This was the first Patriot test in actual combat. Saudi officials say the missile shot down is the only Scud known to have been fired into their country. In addition to the 2 American planes reported missing this morning, Italy's Air Force says an Italian Tornado fighter bomber is missing after taking part in an Allied mission against Iraq. A statement says the warplane did not return to its desert base in the United Arab Emirates after the nighttime mission. There is no word on the fate of the 2-man crew. These pictures show Iraqi anti-aircraft guns in action last night. Iraq has released its first casualty figures. A report on Baghdad radio says 23 civilians have been killed and 66 wounded in the initial hours of Operation Desert Storm. Iraq did not mention any military dead or wounded. There's not much official word from the Pentagon about what's happening with the 101st Airborne troops from Fort Campbell. They are expected to lead the way, though, when the ground assault begins. Channel 4's Carlos Bain is standing by at the base and joins us with a report. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning, Jim. What's happening right now at the base is that the base security is on what's called ThreatCom Bravo. That's the second of 4 levels of security. What that means is that the men will be checking all vehicles right now. They're checking a truck very thoroughly to make sure that nothing happens on base, no terrorism at all. That means the lines out here are going to be very long this morning because they're going to go through everything. Nobody's going to get through unless those cars are checked. There was one group of Kentucky National Guard troops who did leave yesterday, but we could not get any information on the number of troops that left. They're not giving that type of information out. Now, as far as this community is concerned, they remain very close and very committed to the members of the 101st 101st Airborne, and they remain very committed to Operation Desert Storm. In Clarksville, the first 36 hours of Operation Desert Storm ended with some relief that the U.S. military has begun to take action against Iraq. But at Kelly's Big Burger, the concern is now focused on Saddam Hussein's attack on Israel.
That was one thing I was hoping it wouldn't happen, that he wouldn't hit Israel, because, you know, to start maybe a global, or not global, but an Arab conflict between each other and all the countries over there.
Today's front page in the Clarksville Leaf-Chronicle headlined the attack on Israel and the status of the 101st Airborne out of Fort Campbell. There is a sinking feeling in this military community that winning the war in the Persian Gulf will be tougher than first thought.
There's probably a lot of stuff going on over there we don't know about, you know, that the press hadn't made us abreast of, you know, and just we watch day to day, I guess. I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of things going on that we thought that wouldn't happen, that probably will happen.
But there is the belief here that the U.S. is fighting for the right reasons, not just oil, but for some measure of peace in the Middle East.
Something's got to be done. If somebody doesn't stop him, and tell him what he'll do.
The status on where the 101st Airborne might be located remains unknown, and Army spokesmen say they cannot and will not point out where the unit is.
It's still the status quo. The infantry units are not being used at this time. It's an air war.
And it may be an air war, but the 101st will take a major part in any ground assault in trying to get the Iraqis out of Kuwait, as we know. But there will be no information coming out of here as to where they are, when they will strike. That is confidential information. But there was the report coming from Senator Sasser out of Tennessee that some of the members of the 101st were indeed already behind enemy lines, but that cannot be confirmed. That is classified information. Jim reporting live from Fort Campbell. I'm Carlos Bain. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Carlos Bain, reporting from Fort Campbell. In the school system surrounding Fort Campbell, 1 of every 4 students has a parent serving in Saudi Arabia. So school administrators in Montgomery County have assembled a crisis team, as Nancy Amons reports.
Frank S. Greenwood, Moore Smith, Burt School, and school psychologists lead.
The crisis team at the Clarksville-Montgomery County School System plans to hold twice daily briefings as long as parents of many of its students are fighting in the Gulf.
I think by that time, too, we can help.
With daily newsletters and telephone pyramids, they will inform the system's 24 principals of advisories from the base, as well as updates about services for students.
And if a school says that we really need some additional help, then we will call on our director of the psychologists, and we'll ask them to form a pool of psychologists to go in and work with that school with any needs they might have.
What does that mean? If they're protecting our country, look down at the bottom of the page, and what does that mean sometimes?
Last fall, some schools in Clarksville started support groups where students were encouraged to talk about their feelings.
So whenever you have a little break, is that when you start to think about Dad? How about at home?
But since the onset of the fighting, administrators have adopted the approach that the less said about the war, the better. Effective immediately, radios and TVs are off limits in school. Administrators say the students need to concentrate on their studies and maintain their routines.
For children who have parents over there, when they hear casualties, they get concerned, and I think that they can wait 8 hours to get home to their parents to hear that on the TV.
Students have mixed feelings. Some are glad to suspend their thoughts about a father fighting in the Gulf.
I knew what was going on. It's just that I was trying to forget it, and a bad day. I'm worried. My father is over there. It's just basically been a regular day. That's all you can really do. You've got to keep it in a pleasant atmosphere. Keep going on routine so you don't have time to worry about what's going on over in Saudi.
That opinion is not unanimous.
I don't think it's fair because we all have boyfriends and husbands and stuff, fathers over there, and everybody always wants to know what's going on.
Administrators who say they want to protect their students from extra anxiety have also blocked news reporters from in and outside the schools.
Go to your buses. Let's go. We don't have any interviews with kids out here today.
The crisis team's biggest challenge may simply be to keep school life as routine as possible as its students learn about the impact of war in their daily lives rather than from a history book. In Clarksville, Nancy Amons, Channel 4 News.
The Japanese stock market finished the day up more than 360 points. That is despite Iraq's attack on Israel last night. On the Tokyo foreign exchange market, the U.S. dollar was down against the Japanese yen, closing at 133.60 yen. That is down by 0.40 yen from Thursday's close. Today's action follows a wild day on Wall Street yesterday, with the stock market soaring to its second largest gain in history. Many feared the start of war would be hard on the economy, but Don Aaron reports the first reaction is just the opposite.
Oh, this market's going to run.
Stockbroker Michael Goldston came to work this morning expecting Wall Street to show its approval of the war effort in the Middle East. From the moment the New York Stock Exchange opened at 9:30 Eastern Time, it was clear Goldston's expectations were right on target.
We're now up 71 points, 40 million shares. This is 1/3 of the volume that we did all day yesterday, and we've done it in 20 minutes. And there's not a stock on my machine that's down.
Transportation stocks, including airlines, posted large gains, and that could be great news for flyers and the economy as a whole. It appears to indicate the price of jet fuel may be coming down.
Lower oil prices will be passed on and lower ticket fares. Also, the less money that the airlines have to spend on oil, the more money they're going to have to expand, which creates new jobs for the economy and more airplanes to be built, and hopefully trickles all the way down.
Brad Meyer hopes his company is part of that trickle. Meyer is one of the owners of Sail Air Travel Agency and says lower jet fuel prices may be the shot in the arm the airline industry needs.
We feel as if automatically, if the airlines don't have to pay high fuel costs, they will be able to offer their product at a much lower price, drawing back people who are marginal travelers in terms of the airlines and can only afford an inexpensive airline ticket.
You wouldn't know it by visiting gas pumps, but crude oil futures prices posted their biggest one-day fall in history on the New York Mercantile Exchange. Will we see a big drop in gas prices? Hard to predict, says W.J. Wallace of Wallace Exxon.
Well, since the president has opened up the reserve, we look for it to stay a little bit stable right now. It depends on how it goes over in the Middle East. If it goes good over there, it could come down. If it goes bad, it could go up.
And motorists aren't looking for huge savings on gasoline anytime soon.
I think the oil company's going to get rich now again. But the consumer is not going to have anything out of this.
Though the Allied air raids haven't brought a drop in gas prices, the economic news thus far has been encouraging. Analysts predict it'll remain positive as long as military efforts in the Middle East go well. Don Aaron, Channel 4 News.
And there's more still ahead on this newscast. Keith Bilbrey will be along with the day's weather, and coming up next, we'll have a look at a few stories from here in Tennessee.
Climbing higher every day. Get to know Geo, it'll go a long way. Go, 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 Geo, go.
Get to know Geo, the cars with the get up and go, the gas stingy Geo Storm, the Go Anywhere Geo Tracker, the roomy affordable Geo Prism, or the Geo Metro with the best gas mileage of any car in America. Now more than ever, it pays to know Geo.
Go, go, get to know Geo today.
With rebates up to $800 only at your Tennessee, Kentucky Go Metal Chevy Geo dealer.
Go!
Watch Restoration with James Robinson every week on this channel. Restoration is a program designed to meet your needs, and James Robinson has a message unlike any other in the Christian world. Discover restoration in your life.
Apollo people. Men from all walks of life who have found that baldness and receding hairlines don't need to mar their appearance. They have found how easy it is to let the professional staff at Apollo Hair Replacement Center consult and then take care of their hair. The results can be satisfying as well as rewarding. No matter how severe your hair loss problem, Apollo has the answer. Call today.
Governor Ned McWhorter has decided to take a low-key approach to his inauguration tomorrow because of the Gulf War. There will be none of the parties and balls that normally accompany the swearing-in of a chief executive. McWhirter will take the oath of office for the second time in a ceremony he is dedicating to the Tennesseans serving in Operation Desert Storm. And he's inviting the families of all those serving in the Gulf to attend the ceremony and a reception afterwards in the state capitol. The president of the Baptist Sunday School Board has agreed to retire early. Lloyd Elder recently came under fire from the fundamentalist trustees of the board for his handling of a centennial history of the publishing house. Elder had refused requests by the trustees asking that he resign as president. But in a special meeting held last night at the board's headquarters, the board adopted a special retirement agreement. Under the agreement, Elder will retire either 30 days after his successor is appointed or on January 31st, 1992, whichever comes first. 2 pairs of red wolves will be taken to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park late this month, returning to a land where they haven't been seen since 1905. A park spokesman says the wolves will be kept in pens and hopefully will have pups. The wolves are expected to force out some of the coyotes in the area and may also feed young wild pigs, which have done considerable damage to the park. There are now only 135 red wolves known to be alive, making the species one of the most endangered in the world.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner when a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a winner when a bird, bird, bird. When a bird is a winner when a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner when a bird, bird, bird. When a bird is a winner when a bird, bird. The bird's a winner when a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner when a bird, bird, bird. When a bird is a winner when a bird, bird.
Snowbird is sponsored by Bonanza Family Restaurants and your Tennessee, Kentucky Gold Medal Chevy Geo dealers.
Watch the excitement of SEC basketball Saturday when Mississippi State meets the Florida Gators. SEC basketball sponsored in part by Toyota. Saturday at 11:30 on Channel 4.
Channel 4 presents a special 90-minute documentary on people with AIDS, Reflections in the Dark. Saturday at 6:30 on Channel 4.
Channel 4's closed captioning is made possible in part by Temptation Antique Galleries and ITEL Incorporated, Intelligent Telephones.
Keith Bilbrey joins us for weather now. If those who haven't been outside yet can expect to find a little frost in their windshield this morning.
A little fog in some of the lower-lying areas, certainly down in that range. We've been down to 29, Jim. Here's a look at the past 24 hours. Our high was 52 yesterday. We've had no rain during the past 24 hours, and our monthly and yearly total at 2.73. We're ahead by 0.2 of an inch. Currently, looks like this. Clear skies, but let me mention there is some patchy fog in some of the lower-lying areas, especially around large bodies of water. I traveled out around the Cumberland River this morning, ran into some of that. Temperature at 30, south winds at 7, barometric pressure rising, relative humidity at 100%. Here's a look at our satellite photo. 5 o'clock this morning, mostly clear skies over Tennessee. A tranquil night prevailed over the Volunteer State this morning. But look at this area of cloudiness down in Texas. That's where our rain is coming from on Saturday. Could move into the western part of the state as early as tonight, but into our area tomorrow. There's a closer look at the southeast. There's a look at that area of rain down through Texas, easing on up into southern Arkansas and Mississippi, and that will slowly make its way up to the northeast, up into West Tennessee, as I mentioned, tonight. There's a look at our current map situation. High pressure, the dominant feature. That made for a very nice night over Tennessee, but there's the rainmaker down south and just south of Texas there, south of the Big Bend area. And 42 degrees this morning in Memphis, 27 in Tri-Cities. Big cold Arctic outbreak ready to take place. It's poised up in Canada. Will very rapidly make its way down, move in here about Sunday, and it's going to turn cold. And here's a look at how we expect things to shape up temperature-wise today. We'll be in the 50s through most of the Volunteer State. And there's a look at Weatherbank. 29 degrees in Bowling Green, Clarksville, Dixon, and Waverly this morning. 30 in Gallatin and Cookeville. McMinnville reports 30, as does Tullahoma. 31 in Murfreesboro and Columbia, and 39 this morning in Jackson. Now, by this time tomorrow morning, you see that low-pressure system moving out into the Gulf, pumping that moisture up our way, and giving us about a 50% chance for rain tomorrow. There's the leading edge of that cold air by this time tomorrow morning, down into the Dakotas. It, as I mentioned, will move very rapidly, move through here sometime early Sunday morning, and it is definitely going to cool things off. Give us a possibility of some snow on Sunday. Here's a look at the forecast for today. Well, there's a look at the radar, first of all. No rain within a 150-mile radius. See a little temperature inversion there giving us some false echoes. 34 degrees here on the hill at WSMB. Here's the forecast for today. Partly sunny, up to 51 for a high. West winds at 10. Then for tonight, partly cloudy, down to 35. South winds 5. For tomorrow, look for cloudy with a 50% chance for rain, a high of 52. South winds at 10 and a low of 40. Extended outlook now. Here's where we get to the good part, Jim. 40 for a high on Sunday. That'll probably occur early in the morning, and we'll go with a chance for precipitation, most likely in the form of snow flurries, a low of 20. And then Monday, partly cloudy. How about 32? We'll struggle to get there with a low of 7. Partly cloudy on Tuesday, 22 and 8. Do you see what I mean now by an Arctic outbreak?
Yeah, those temperatures from Monday and Tuesday have been revised downward here since yesterday, considerably downward.
Yeah. May even get cooler than that. As I said, we'll struggle to get 32 on Monday.
And to single digits overnight. Thank you very much, Keith. And we'll turn to Rudy Kalis now for a look at all the sports news.
With the escalation of the war in the Middle East, the concern about terrorism in this country is heightened. NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue continues to say that Super Bowl 25 will go on as planned on January 25th. Security has already been beefed up around Tampa Stadium, where the game is scheduled to be played. 1,600 security officers have been hired. The NFL says right now the game is on, but that could change if the situation gets worse. Of immediate concerns are the Sunday Conference Championship games, and right now those are still on as well. Buffalo, the Bills are getting ready to face the Raiders, and they think the game should go on, but they admit they're thinking about the U.S. troops.
That's a situation where I'm sure people over there don't want us to come to a halt and just stop everything. I'm sure they want us to continue to.
I guess you have to look at it this way. They have to take care of what's over there in the Middle East, and we have to take care of what's out here on this field Sunday.
The Raiders have something else to worry about. Running back Bo Jackson is listed as doubtful for Sunday's game. He injured a hip on this run in last week's win over Cincinnati. Here at home, individual high school basketball games and the high school schools, they have themselves the right to postpone their basketball games because of the war. If they choose to do so, it is their choice. TSSAA Executive Director Ronnie Carter says the decision lies with the schools until the playoffs, when the TSSAA would control that decision.
We would ask you to be with those, all of the men and ladies who are in this conflict, bring them home safely.
This is David Lipscomb University last night. A moment of silence, a prayer, and the singing of the national anthem before David Lipscomb played host to Bethel College, the only team that had beaten the Bison this season. But this night belonged to David Lipscomb. Even though Bethel's an outstanding basketball team, Roger Boyd stuffs it home. But John Pierce scored 36 points for the Bisons, and Tracy Sales added 14, even though he missed this dunk. Pete Froden was there to follow it up. And the scoreboard shows us that the final in that game was 103-80, Lipscomb the winner. Also last night, Union defeated Trevecca 93-85, and Western Kentucky over Old Dominion by the score of 77-74. Vanderbilt Junior center Todd Milholland will be out from 4 to 6 weeks with a torn ligament in his knee that he suffered in practice a couple of days ago. Ironically, he got tangled up with Dan Hall, who is himself recovering from knee surgery. Milholland sat out the Vanderbilt victory over Auburn the other night. Do you need any surgery?
No, surgery is not required, but it should tighten up on itself. But it just depends on how long that'll take.
Even without Milholland, Vandy picked Auburn's defense apart from long range, and also the inside work. Kevin Anglin leading the way with a career-high 26 points. The Commodores travel to Kentucky this Saturday. Bill Elliott arrived at Daytona, where the 4 drivers have been testing for the last 3 days. He did so yesterday, but he didn't do much on the track. The top speed turned in by Davey Allison at 194.426. Mark Martin, 193.216. Jeff Bodine, 192.967. Sterling Marlin, his best run of the winter, 192.843. Morgan Shepherd, 192.802. And Bill Elliott cruised around at 189.793. Two of the top 3 wheelchair basketball teams in the country will be in Nashville for a tournament that begins this evening tonight at McMurray Junior High. Nashville's Music City Lightning is ranked number 3, and Arkansas is number 2. Nashville plays tonight at 6:30 at McMurray Junior High. Also, let me mention, we've got a couple of folks, or some people that are involved in the Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City, National Finals. And Cliff Goodrich from Humboldt has qualified for the finals in the steer wrestling. And Dennis Morris, who went into the finals as the #1 bull rider in the country, came in second last night, but he's still overall #1. It comes a combination of points and the number of rides and the money that you earn, and so far he is in the lead and hopefully can win the national title. And that is a look at sports. My name is Rudy Kalis.
Right now, it's important to know what your children think about the war. They may be scared, they may misbehave to change a solemn mood, they may ask questions. When your child wants to talk about the war, above all, tell the truth. Be realistic. If you're worried or have concerns, tell them. Trying to cover up may frighten your child even more. You may be the only way your child has of understanding all this. Be there for them.
You know, there was a time in my life when it was a struggle reading a book, even my own Bible, all because no one in my family realized the importance of education. Well, I'm here to tell you that education can open your eyes, open your mind, and open doors. So join me this year in supporting Channel 4's effort to make education count. It's something we all can stand up for.
Stand Up for Education, created by WSMV for the family.
By simply tuning a satellite dish at home, anyone can find out what the rest of the world is seeing and hearing about the Gulf War. Maya Carroll in Salinas, California, reports the international interest in the Persian Gulf conflict has caused satellite dish sales to soar.
Right alongside American reporters, foreign journalists were caught by bombing raids in Baghdad and Tel Aviv. People around the world watched it happen. This Mexico City TV station has round-the-clock war coverage, much like American television. Viewers saw momentary panic when the anchorman turns to speak to his reporter in Tel Aviv as the bombs drop. There is no response. He asks if she can hear him. A few seconds later, relief. She speaks. Simply by punching a few channels, Americans who have been glued to U.S. reports of the war can turn home satellite dishes to see and hear how the rest of the world is reporting the Gulf crisis. Satellite dishes can pick up international news from Canada, Brazil, and Japan, just to name a few.
Clearly, everyone in the world is interested in a war like this one. There are 24 countries that have contributed forces to the United Nations effort in the Gulf, are particularly interested in how things are going generally and how their contingents are faring. But I do think that for most of the world, still, this is the United States versus Iraq.
Elaine Madero says orders for satellite dishes have boomed since the Gulf War erupted.
We have had to turn down more business than we can handle.
People want satellite dishes?
Yes, they do. They want to be apprised of everything that's going on.
Language instructor Paul Teodorescu watched international TV reports tonight, translating them. Many foreign stations have their own crews, but often pirate American networks, simply translating the language. In Salinas, California, Maya Carroll for NBC News.
And finally, a recap of the headlines from the Gulf this hour. 4 more American pilots are missing this morning in the Persian Gulf. A Navy A-6 and an Air Force F-15A are believed lost in the attack against Iraq. Israel is considering its next move following a pre-dawn attack by Iraqi Scud missiles that injured about 30 people. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir has been meeting with cabinet members and defense officials to ponder a retaliatory strike. Another Scud missile was successfully blown up over Saudi Arabia by a U.S. Patriot missile. It was the first time the Patriot had been used in actual combat. And the 101st Airborne appears poised and ready to join the fighting, but there has been no official word from Washington. We'll continue our coverage of Operation Desert Storm throughout the day. I'm Jim Travis. Good morning.
Channel 4 and NBC bringing you full golf coverage.
Out in the field, during Vietnam, it was said in 15 minutes, if you were injured, you could get to good medical care. Is the time frame about the same now?
I can't speak for what's happening down in the Persian Gulf. I can only say what happens in our hospital, and I feel we're very prepared for anything. We've got a real well-trained staff to just take care of those soldiers.
What about this report that Don Oliver had just a moment ago? He said that there would be some casualties that would be taken to civilian hospitals.
We're hoping
okay.
We're hoping that the Germans will cooperate and participate.
Ms. Schoonmaker, I
can't say for sure.
I thank you for being with us, and we wish you lots of luck. Coming up on 59 minutes after the hour. Back in a moment.
Good morning. After being outgunned and humiliated in the opening phase of war in the Gulf, Saddam Hussein has struck back at the United States and its allies. Iraq fired over a half-dozen missiles at Israel last night, striking into the heart of Tel Aviv. Some damage and 52 injuries resulted. Another Iraqi missile was launched towards Saudi Arabia, but intercepted by American forces before reaching its destination. Though Iraq's attacks proved disruptive and disturbing, their net effect pales in comparison to the pounding being delivered by a steady stream of Allied missiles and bombers. As part of Operation Desert Storm, round-the-clock attacks on Iraq and occupied Kuwait are continuing today, Friday, January the 18th, 1991.
From NBC News, this is a special edition of Today, America at War. Now, here are Bryant Gumbel and Deborah Norville.
Good morning and welcome to Today on a Friday morning. As we head towards a weekend, we are expecting a briefing momentarily from General Norman Schwarzkopf, who's commander of U.S. Gulf Forces. He'll be joining us. We'll be taking that live in just a couple of moments.
And this will be essentially the first real information we've had since almost 22 hours ago when Defense Secretary Cheney and Joint Chiefs of Staff Colin Powell